the truth about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there, it would be like Africa. Nobody is threatening to intervene in Africa.
We need not rehearse the reasons why Britain and later the United States have been determined to control the Gulf region. It's enough to recall the observation of the State Department in 1945 that the resources of the region are a stupendous source of strategic power and one of the greatest material prizes in world history.
Palestine and the Middle East were regarded as highly strategic to the British Empire because of oil, and also because the Suez Canal controlled the sea route to India.
The Balfour Declaration of November 1917. British Foreign Minister Arthur Balfour sent a one-sentence telegram to the Zionist Federation of Great Britain that would have a lasting impact. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country.
Listen to what Balfour wrote to one of his colleagues.
For in Palestine we do not propose even to go through the form of consulting the wishes of the present inhabitants of the country.
Instead, it was the Zionists who were consulted about what their vision for Palestine was, and so the mandate ended up incorporating not just the Balfour Declaration, but several clauses requiring Britain to ensure the establishment of a Jewish home in Palestine. This was World War I, and the British were making lots of promises. In addition to promising a Jewish homeland in Palestine, they promised Arab leaders independence if they rose up against Britain's enemy, the Ottoman Empire. The Arabs did. Hollywood even made a movie about it.
Arabia's for the Arabs now. That's what I've told them anyway. That's what they think. That's why they're fighting.
Oh, surely.
A month after Balfour's letter, British troops took Palestine, ending 400 years of Ottoman rule. The people who lived there were Arabs, mostly Muslims, but there were Christian and Jewish minorities too. There was also a tiny number of European Jews who in the late 1800s had started building small colonies there. At a time when many Jews were suffering horrific persecution in Europe, they felt Palestine could be an escape. When Balfour wrote of his government's intent to create a Jewish homeland in Palestine, 90% of the people living there were not Jewish. Just 31 years later, most of them were gone.
לא יכול לדעת בחיי. היה לי מקלע עם 250 כדורים.
By 1948, Zionist militia would storm and capture Palestinian-populated villages and cities, leaving thousands of Palestinians homeless and landless. The Zionists wanted to seize and cleanse as much land from Palestine before the British would officially withdraw their forces. And on the same day that they left, the Zionists proclaimed the establishment of the new Israeli state. Overnight, millions of Palestinians lost their country. And what's even more bizarre is that immediately the two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, recognized the new state of Israel. And if it couldn't get any worse, May 15th, 1948 was perhaps one of the darkest days in Palestine's history. They called it the Nakba, or the catastrophe. To lose your country, your identity and your home just like that is something truly horrifying. But that wasn't enough for those Palestinian men, women and children. They had to be ethnically cleansed from their lands and driven into near total destruction. See, the creation of the State of Israel didn't just mean that 1.9 million Palestinians were forced out of their homes. Didn't just mean that 78% of historic Palestine had been taken from its natives. Didn't just mean that 530 villages and cities were destroyed and ethnically cleansed. And didn't just mean the killing of 15,000 Palestinians in a series of mass atrocities. it means that it was the start of something even more horrifying for the Palestinian people. It signaled over 70 years of occupation, home demolitions, arbitrary arrests, displacements, Israeli expansion, military checkpoints, construction of walls, discrimination, massacres, and bombing of innocent men, women, and children in their own homes. So no, it's not complicated. The Palestinians are a people who have been oppressed and had their lands taken away from them and have been suffering ever since. This is how the events of the past shape the conditions of today. This is why it is important to remember and reflect our history before it repeats itself again.
No, had we pushed them into the wall, we're not pushing them to the wall. We want to open a humanitarian corridor so they can leave. But if Hamas...
So that who can leave? So that who can leave? Citizens? You're saying civilians can leave, but only through the Rafah border, correct?
At this point, yes.
So they can't
come...
Because
where else?
Your country! They can come into Israel!
I'm telling you one more thing I want to say.
But I want you to address that point. Don't just smile, sir, respectfully. You're saying you're making a corridor. They can go to Egypt. You're bombing them. You say you want to save them, but they can't come in.
First of all, I'm not smiling. I'm crying in my heart. I'm crying in my heart for all the butchery of thousands of Israelis. Why do you think the world is with us? Why do you think the world is with us? All the international media was there. So don't talk to me about collective punishment. Don't talk to me about humanitarian. These are new rules of the game.
Well, the world isn't with Israel, right? The West is with Israel, or at least the governments of the West are with Israel. And much of the global South is with Palestine because they recognize that this is a colonizer with an occupied people, right? So this idea the world is with Israel is just factually untrue. Some very powerful countries are with Israel, but the world is not.
So we all know the history. I mean, the Zionist militias just wiped out the Palestinian society in Palestine and pushed the Palestinians to the west in Gaza and to the east on the West Bank. West Bank means the west border of the Jordan River, but it's the east of Israel. Rather than amalgamating everybody into a democratic society where rights are equal and protected and recognized by the government, they created an apartheid. And the apartheid consisted of a suppression of the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza. And then as Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization came along and began to attract a lot of people, even some rational Israelis, Netanyahu decided he had to create a division amongst the Palestinians. And so the Israeli government found this group Hamas, a small unknown political group, gave it money, gave it encouragement. And then when Hamas was elected to take over the Gaza Strip, the Israelis did their best to destroy it. And the reaction to those efforts was last weekend. It's barbaric. I don't condone it, but it's not without it's without justification, but it's not without explanation. Well, one of Bibi Netanyahu's cabinet members last week referred to the Palestinians as a subhuman race. That, of course, is reminiscent of Germany in 1933 saying that about the Jews, the Nuremberg laws. I mean, that is a behavior in a governmental official that is reprehensible and can't claim to be a democracy at all because it doesn't have respect for individual human rights. The Israeli government, I'm not talking about the Jewish people, the Israeli governments have never respected the rights of the Palestinians. Israel is a member of the UN. The UN has declared that the Palestinians have a right to become a government. Israel would never allow the Palestinians to become a government because then they'll have a claim to the land that was stolen from them.
What is really disturbing is that less than 2 weeks before Israel launched their attack on Gaza with the purpose of permanently eliminating it, Netanyahu showed a map during the General Assembly at the United Nations. This map is called the New Middle East. When you look at Israel, then the Palestinian regions have been completely removed. There is no sign anymore of any Palestinian presence on the map of the new Middle East that Netanyahu showed less than 2 weeks before they launched their attack on Gaza.